Now broadcasting from the Next Gen Conservative Studio in sunny South Florida, bringing you the latest in politics, current events, and pop culture. This is the Whitfield Report with Sam Whitfield.
Alrighty, folks, welcome to this very special Saturday edition of the Whitfield Report. I am pre-recording this partially because both OBS and Streamlabs, and Discord are having audio issues, but that's here nor there. But anyway, my guest for this episode of the podcast is Falco Punch 64, aka Jack Pierce. And Jack has actually been on the podcast before. He came on back in early October of 2021 for a segment, but his episode was scrubbed because later on I played a Project Veritas clip that evidently Mama Susan decided to scrub any stream relating to that that had that clip in it. And even when I tried to just re-upload his segment to YouTube, for whatever reason, because it was in that stream, YouTube still decided not to, just to take it down. So with that in mind, I wanted to allow Jack to come back on and, just kind of reintroduce himself to the audience. And also, Jack, since we've last spoken, you yourself have started a show. So first off, welcome to the program, sir. So
thanks for having me.
So first off, you're an author, and that's kind of, I wouldn't say super unusual, but kind of in this sphere of the internet, you usually get a lot of gamers and just like internet personalities in general. But what I guess, man, what caused you to seek out becoming an author? That's always very fascinating to me.
Well, I couldn't make movies. I didn't have the money or the budget or the talent or any of that stuff. So, books were a lot easier for me, really. And I've expanded quite a bit in my way of writing and everything. But I just wrote a few books here and there. Like, there's supposed to be radio dramas. Like, there's going to be one tonight, and I'm starting to do those now. It's like just a little side. Like, if I don't feel like doing a full 3 or 4 hour show, I'll just like screw it and just throw up one of the books, just as a placeholder, basically, on a night. And like tonight. And for some reason, one of my books, Condemned, that I thought was going to maybe get 10 views because it's not, Ethan Ralph content or drama or anything. It apparently has like 600 views on it, which I'm just like, oh my God. Well, I hope they enjoyed it, because nobody's commented, but that's also good because they might try to spoil the ending too. So
yeah.
So that's the way I see it. Since they're not saying anything, maybe they just don't want to spoil the ending. So that's good. If they did, I'll just delete the comment anyway. But overall, it's just, I just wanted to create stuff, and that was just one of the avenues of doing it. That was the cheapest, easiest, and most accessible way to actually do this sort of stuff. And it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, and one thing I also, you and I have talked about off air, one thing I know that you have kind of revealed recently too, is that you actually have your own publishing company too, which is interesting.
Yeah, I was with the traditional publisher for the first, I think 10 books, and then when I wanted to release K's Away, I broke off and made my own company after that, and took, bought the rights and, of all the books in one lump sum, and just exited the company, and that was it. I wanted to have more control over everything, and, more of the money and all that. So that happened. But
so in a sense, then well, I mean, the term self-publishing is such a catch-all now with the internet, but like I guess how would you really define yourself? Like are you a publisher, or are you more of like an author? Like what do you see kind of your role in that whole thing?
I see myself as basically an author that self-publishes now, but used to traditionally publish otherwise until I, decided I wanted to just handle the rest of the work myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm both, I'm both traditional and self-published, just depending on what era you're talking about. Everything K in a way before is traditional, and then everything after is self. So
Yeah, and how long have you also been online? Because you and I have both kind of I'm surprised we didn't cross paths earlier, because you and I have both been online for like quite some time. I mean, I've been active since about 2008, and I think you said the same thing.
YouTube, yeah.
Okay. Were you self-publishing like were you writing books before then, or
Yeah, but they were nowhere near as long or intricate or good. I just the crazy. I wish I had some of my older books, because I would love to see how my writing has evolved from, like, when I was 15 to now. But I have nothing. I mean, the latest book that I have is Under a Morning Star. Really, I mean, that's like the earliest one I have, and that was my biggest seller. So it's like I didn't have anything to go off of. I used to write like this, and now I write like this. So it was basically I just started over entirely in 2018. Because I was a YouTuber for shit, I don't know what, 2008 to 2018, 10 years. Then I quit for almost 4 years, and now I just come back. So I don't want to say that I've been a YouTuber for 14 years, because I haven't been one straight, but I've been in the sphere for 14 years, if you know
yeah,
what I mean.
I mean that's fair. I've been in the podcasting sphere for 14 years myself. I actually just celebrated 14 years of podcasting back in March. And that is one thing I wanted to ask about. How has the YouTube sphere kind of, I guess, changed in your mind from then to now? Both positive and negative, I guess.
I think this is the best time to be a YouTuber, and there's no other period in YouTube history that would be better than now, because a lot of people try to look back at nostalgia of, oh, remember the content from 2008 and 2010. I agree. I love old YouTube. I do. But the thing is, that was 10 years ago, over 10 years ago now. And that stuff is still there, but there's all the stuff that's happened since then. You can still watch 2008, 2010, style content, like the rant reviewers and all of that stuff. That stuff still exists, like, I guess it'll be called a podcast now. I don't think they really called it podcast back then, did they? When did they start calling it podcast?
Well, okay, so this is kind of kind of bringing my history. So I started listening to podcasts when I was like 12 or like 13, back in like 2007, because a friend of mine had like a family friend of mine had like a comic book shop, and this was like right before the MCU and the Marvel movies became like a thing, because I'm also, and I think I've told you this, but like I'm a comic book collector and whatnot too. Like even before the Marvel movies became like huge, I've always been into comics. So like comic books were like one of like the first, I guess, things that like kind of became big in podcasting. And like I remember like a friend of mine got like one of the early Libsyn accounts and started talking about like comic books, and it didn't really go very far because like no one really knew what podcasting was. I started in like 2008, just like basically talking to myself in a room,
I
and
think
just
that's
like
what we all do at this point, isn't it? Just talk to
Yeah,
ourselves in the room for the most part.
well, but I mean, like, back then, like, now we have, like, live chats and, like,
That's
people,
true. Yeah.
and, like, people could interact. Like, back then, like, you were basically just, like, you basically had to, like, pretend that you were, talking to someone.
Yeah.
And, like, I remember back in the early days of, like, podcasting, and I mean, I guess same thing with, like, YouTube, like, the analytics just weren't there. So, like, you could like, put something out there, and unless anyone, like, pinged you on Facebook or anything, which was, like, super early Facebook, like, you almost never got feedback, right? Like, it was very kind of like a closed circuit. And so that was kind of how podcasting was. And I mean, back then, like, people didn't really have smartphones either, so, like, I would always, like, download like 5 or 10 podcasts onto my actual iPod back in the day, and then, like, I'd swap them out like every week or so. Um, but then I think, like, live streaming didn't really, like, become a thing until, like, 2014. So um but yeah, so I mean, I would kind of agree that the same thing with podcasting is kind of the same deal with YouTube, to be honest. So, um, and I mean, you've also done a few podcasts yourself. I know, when we first met, you were doing the Tear Tracks podcast,
That's
and
coming back. Yeah.
oh, okay, so you are bringing that back then.
Yes.
And then now you do Falco Punch 64. I like to call it blood sports for dummies. That's kind of what I've called your show.
I'll take that. I'll take that that testimonial.
So here's kind of I guess the first, like, big question I have, which is, uh Jack, you seem like a really nice guy. So no offense, but how the fuck did you get mixed up in this shit ass crazy corner of the internet known as
Without going too far into my previous
e-drama?
my previous personas that I've tried to move my distance myself from over the since it happened all like 4 years ago. This is the last time I kind of dodged blood sports entirely, actually. See,
So, yeah, so did I.
I did a lot of like the NTSJW stuff from like 2015 to 2018, and then I just realized I'm
Same
just
here.
I just my life situation changed so drastically that it just wasn't feasible, and it wasn't mentally well for me to stay doing that sort of content or whatever. But I just said fuck it, and I just quit. After whatever amount of time, I just quit YouTube, and I just said I want to be an author, because an author, I'm a lot better at writing than I am speaking. I know that for sure, especially when I hear audiobook readers read it back. It sounds so much better than when I speak off the cuff. You know what I mean? So it's like I feel like I'm a lot better writer than I am speaker. And I just decided, I wanted to bring back radio dramas, is what happened in 2018. And that's what I'm doing now with Terror Tracks, basically, is, kind of using my audiobooks with some effects here and there. And, like, they perform the different voices and stuff, of course, on their own, because it's an audiobook. So it comes out almost like a little radio drama sort of thing. And, I'm trying to bring that back, not even because I think it's popular, but because that's just what I want to do. It's sort of like a passion project. I like creepypasta is the best way I can explain it. My stuff is very, very long creepy pastas, or is what it really is. The Terror Tracks thing. The thing
Yeah.
in creepy pasta is usually what, like 1,000 words, maybe 1,500 words. They're not that long. But I write novels and shit, but like I have the same sort of voicing that a creepy pasta would, and that's what I'm kind of doing. And the Terror Tracks thing was just my idea of I didn't know what I wanted to do at first with Terror Tracks, and I still don't, because what I originally wanted to do was teach people a writing lesson, and then I would have an audiobook chapter play every week, and then I had Are You Afraid of the Dark episode review. And then when I finally looked at my analytics after like 30 episodes. Nobody watched Are You Afraid of the Dark thing. No, nobody listened to the Are You Afraid of the Dark thing. So I said, okay, that's fine. I cut that out because I was like, that's just extra effort for no fucking reason. If no one's gonna listen, if they're gonna stop after the story, whatever. But what ended up happening was I don't know. I think I just decided to cut it down to Terror Tracks is just a show where you listen to a new scary story every week. And that's what I wanted, and whether it's just a chapter in one of my audiobooks, which it really has been. It's been under a morning star. I have it scheduled all the way out to fucking August right now because of how long that book is. It's like 48 chapters, so that's 48 weeks of programming. But I mean, that book's 450 pages. I actually like that book. That was my first one. I think it's still my favorite, but which is kind of hard to even say. That it's like choosing your favorite child, really.
Right.
I don't know, man. It's like the thing is, like, by the time I'm done editing a book, I hate that book, and I never want to read that fucking book again. And I think it's a piece of shit because of how hard I've worked on it, and like how much of a microscope and little tiny scalpel I've had to take to this. Every fucking sentence has to be. Sorry if I can't say the F word on here. You can bleep me, but
Oh no! What the fuck are you talking about? We say fuck here all the time.
that's fine. I work so hard on the editing process that it just makes me hate whatever the book is. And then, like, I'll listen to it a few years later, like I have recently. I'm just like, dude, this is great. I mean, I'm not trying to say, oh, I'm some Stephen King.
Right.
I'm a great author and everybody should buy my shit. But when I listen back to it, it's like, it's so much better than I was expecting it to be. Like, I'm expecting to hear a turd, and then I hear something that I would have loved to listen to, if someone else wrote it. You know what I mean? I'm like, because I don't remember any of these stories 2 years later. I can't tell you who the hell the main characters of any of my books are really at this point. I mean, except for maybe Under Morning Star and maybe the Snow White Murders, Sam Wolf and whoever the hell else is with him in that book. I don't know. I think his cop friend Vincent's in it, but like I can't remember all these different characters because when you write something that big, it's hard to keep up with it. But the fans, of the book, they just really zone in on it, and they can spot all the inconsistencies and all of that. And that's, even though we had our differences and we decided to stop working together. Lotus Token, James Cross is his real name on the books. He was my, what you would call, a developmental editor. He was basically the guy that basically read all the stuff I would write and basically say, no, he's like the producer, like on an album when a band's like, the producer's like, no, I don't like that. Yeah. We're not going to do that. That's what he was. He was like the yes, no guy. Like I would write something and go, I like that thing. No, I don't like that. Why don't you try it this way? It's like, he was that kind of guy. So he was basically the producer on on the first 10 books, except for K is Away. He wasn't involved in that at all. And he wasn't involved in Nuke Your Brain either. So that's 8 books he was on.
Are you one of those authors that like has all your books in like a self-contained like universe, or are all your books like individually like unrelated to
they are in the same universe, but at the same time they're unrelated. There are crossover segments, like like one thing in the timeline, Norcastle is this city from Under a Morning Star, which is like the big Silent Hill sort of situation that starts the entire series, where the guy goes to his hometown. It's basically like Silent Hill kind of thing. And like in other books, you'll hear like someone grabs a newspaper, Norcastle murders, blah, 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 and that'll be it, but it'll tell you that they're connected, but they're not in a way where you have to read book 1, 2, 3, 4, like to understand anything. You can grab any of them, but they all do have references to other, books in them. But it's like a cameo in a movie. You know what I mean? It's not like a big plot point.
Right.
You have to read Under a Morning Star to understand, the Snow White Murders, but it might have a mention of something that happened in the other book, like, just as like a random cameo, and that's it. Then it'll just move on. But no, yes. I try to keep it all as separate as possible, because I think of it this way. A lot of people get their books from like thrift stores and Goodwill and stuff like that. My shit will inevitably end up there because all books do end up in those places. And I don't want someone to grab a Jack Pierce novel. I'm not saying talking in third person, by the way. I don't
Please,
want someone.
yeah.
I'm trying. Let me back up. I don't want someone to buy one of my novels with my brand on it and be lost. Be like, oh, I can't read this because I don't have the other ones. You know what I mean? I want them to just be able to see it and say, I like that. I like that idea. I'm going to go home and read this. And that's it, you know, because I know some people may not like Dreamer. Some people may not like Under a Morning Star. Some people might not like Bring Me a Dream, and they might love the Suicide Diaries. I mean, you don't know what people are going to like. So it's like,
Right.
just make it where they're all connected, where the people that do like all the other books can enjoy those little references and shit to the other ones, but don't make it where they have to, you know, you're forcing them to read one they really, really hate to get to one they really, really like.
So your so your genre, and I apologize, we probably should have established this earlier. I mean, your genre is kind of in like the horror, but I would also kind of say like mystery thriller-ish type of.
That's like the trilogy, isn't it? It's horror, mystery, thriller all mixed up into one. I mean, if you want an easy way to understand it, Under a Morning Star was my first book, and it's basically what happens if you took like Silent Hill, like 1 and 2, the video games, and mix them with the take that sort of take almost like a James Bond slash character, put him in Silent Hill, and then give the story the structure of a Final Fantasy game, where it's like it starts out small in one area, then it just keeps expanding into like this big global adventure. You know what I mean? So it's like like a horror James Bond sort of thing is what Under a Morning Star was. You know, like a psychologically fucked up Hellraiser sort of thing, but with like a Bondish sort of, like going through all of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've written kind of in like the military thriller genre. I have one short story that is kind of that's published, and I've actually thought of like maybe like rebooting the franchise and like rewriting the story all over again, because there are certain like political things that have happened in the real world that have kind of like messed with the kind of the intention of the script, like of kind of the story plan I had out entirely. So I mean, that's the other thing too, is like, like basing writing off of like real world events. I kind of find that to be challenging just because things change like all the time. So
well, COVID completely ruined a couple of my books that were eventually going to be written, because I wanted to write a series, or at least have at least one book that was about a terrorist organization that gets a hold of a virus and then basically holds the world hostage, and it gets released or whatever into like viral bombs and shit. So like Siphon Filter,
right, and then
like, but I was going to do it my way, like my flavor of story, but I wanted to do sort of a Siphon Filter sort of thing, like at least the first 3 games, because the thing is, people for some reason forget that those games had incredible stories. Oh my god, Siphon Filter was a great series for the story itself.
Oh yeah.
I put it up there with Metal Gear Solid. I mean, it was so well written, like, those characters and just the overlapping thing, like especially the first game. I was just like, oh my god, I wish this was a book or a movie or something game, because it was so well. I love that sort of thing. Like they took like James Bond, Mission Impossible, and like every action movie that was awesome, and just gave it this amazing story along with it. There was like this just big thing. It was so good. And the second one was great, and the third one was great, and then the rest of them sucked, from what I understand. But they were like some games back when me. I don't know, how old are you? You're in your 30s, aren't you?
I'm 20. I'm 27. Like physically, people always call me an old soul, so it's like I'm 27.
Well, you remember the PlayStation era, I'm sure.
Oh fuck yeah, dude! Totally.
Have you noticed that most of the PlayStation era, every game back then had incredibly like deep stories and shit? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
like
totally,
all of
dude.
the JRPGs had these huge stories, and then Soul Reaver, which was just a 3D sort of Zelda thing. Had like this big epic story that went across all the Legacy of Kain games. And Siphon Filter had a big story, and Metal Gear Solid had this
Mac,
giant story that could be like fucking 5,000 pages.
Max Payne back in the day,
Yeah,
like
exactly. Like all the like this every game back then was like had like a novel worth of story. Like, you know, had like a 5,000 page novel basically written
yeah.
into it.
Well, and I mean, not to go off on a tangent, but like one of the things that I've like ranted about is like I don't want to sound like a square, but like I kind of like stopped playing like video games like around like 2013, 2014, partially because like when everything like started to become like multiplayer, everything like yeah, I get it, but like to me, like I play video games partially like for the same reason like why people like to watch movies. Like I like to get lost in like a story. And to
Yeah.
me, like with everything being like multiplayer, like it's not the same necessarily. So
I remember the old Call of Duty games had really good stories. Like
oh
the really
yeah.
like all the stuff like pre-multiplayer, like we're talking about like Finest Hour and like, you know, when they were basically a Medal of Honor clone, you
Yeah.
know, until they got into Modern Warfare and, you know, World at War and all of that, which I think they probably have decent stories too. But for some reason, it just seemed Medal of Honor was a good story driven game too. The first two games were, even if they weren't the greatest gameplay, they did have a fun sort of World War II atmosphere and story going on. I like that. And, you
The
know,
the Batman Arkham series actually had a pretty good, I mean, I know it's Batman and I know not everyone's into superheroes, but like there are some genuinely, good storylines out of that series. So
I couldn't get into the games, and I'm the biggest Batman fan probably on earth. I love Batman. I love the movies. I love the animated series. I love all those, you know, things. And for some reason, it's just the gameplay just not grip me. At least Arkham Asylum didn't.
right.
Maybe I think Arkham City did do it for me because I felt like, you know, Batman would be doing the same sort of game as like the old Spider-Man games, or probably the new ones too, where it's like an open world and you just
Yeah.
like Spider-Man just shoots his fucking webs and just swings around everywhere. And I wanted that with Batman because Batman movies weren't him stuck in a building the entire time. It was him driving around Gotham and, you know, jumping from rooftops and, you know,
Yeah.
batarang, just doing all that Batman stuff. You know, like he was like a guy that was like on the rooftops looking down at criminals and jumping off of stuff. And that's what I want in a Batman game, not this linear stuck in a, you know, Resident Evil sort of thing, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Arkham Asylum was like pretty good for like horror, game type things. If you can kind of call it that, but like Arkham City was kind of, and then Arkham Knight, like I never really played it, but like from what I'm told, Arkham Knight was kind of a train wreck, like gameplay
Yeah, at
wise.
least the I don't know about the gameplay. I know the performance was when it first came out. I think it was Arkham Knight that had the horrible PC launch and
Yeah,
all of that.
yeah, which is
But
a shame because I really wanted to drive the fucking Batmobile.
yeah,
That was all I wanted, but
all we really need from a Batman game, and I'm sure that there's one out there in the comments can correct us on this. I want something that's basically Spider-Man 2 from PlayStation 2, but Batman. Just an open world where Batman does Batman stuff. I mean, there's no
yeah,
need for any type of linear things. Just have Batman fly, like, you know, drive around in the Batmobile and go to like different, like, you know, the Joker's over here doing something. Get just run over there and beat him up. You know, just an open world, just Batman simulator sort of thing.
yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like Arkham Knight tried to do that, but they also got like bogged down in like store events where it's like you need to go over here or else you won't be able to like unlock this thing over here. So yeah, it kind
I
of got.
I feel like Assassin's Creed really did do a good Batman itch though. At least the first couple games
Oh
did.
yeah.
For me, like the whole jumping from rooftop to rooftop, being sneaky and killing guards and stuff is just. I used to have so much fun just getting on the rooftops, and as sadistic as it is, I just grab the guards and I just throw them off the rooftop and see them fall down. And
Oh
you hear
yeah.
everybody go, "Oh my god!" You know, they're
Me
like,
too.
Just I don't know what it was about just being able to throw a guard off the roof just made me happy back then. But
Speaking of games, have you played Super Gun 64 yet?
yes, I
Uh,
have, and it sucked.
well,
But
I
but I
mean,
wasn't a Superman fan anyway back in the day. Really, I mean, I just thought he was too powerful. I like Smallville. I thought that was a good show when I was a kid, at least.
no, I
Yeah.
no, I think you misunderstood the question. I asked if you played Super Gunt
Oh, see, I
64.
thought you were saying Superman 64,
No,
which
I played Superman 64, which sucked. Although it's hilarious because I would imagine that Super Gunt 64 would also
oh yeah,
suck.
I've already done Super Gun 64 on the channel
Um,
as a
yeah,
let's play. I did a live stream. The crazy thing was, and this is why every time I do a live stream, if anybody shows up, I try to, basically walk up, like virtually walk up to every person in chat that's new or old and shake their hand and say thanks for coming, or welcome to the show or welcome back or whatever. If I remember somebody, I try to do that with every single person because I've gone for so many years, from 2014 to now, where I would just sit in a fucking thing, no matter how many views my solo videos would do, the off-air stuff would get. I would just sit there and have zero viewers or like
yep,
nobody in
yep.
chat for hours. And I was just like, I pushed through it and it's just hell. And now that I've actually gotten some success, I'm not saying I'm famous. I'm not getting, I'm nowhere near as big as Kino Casino or Pod Awful or anything. I may be one day, but I don't know. I'm not gonna count my chickens before they hatch, as they say. But
I
I,
mean, do let me ask you this. Do you really want I mean, I know that like yeah, being famous would be like nice, but like think about this too, but like do you really want to be famous off of like that whole train wreck side of the internet?
no, not really.
Yeah, like
I'm happy with what I get now. If I get 150 to 200 people watching live, which is what I've been getting close to, I think that's probably what's going to average out to. I'm happy with that because it's big enough where it's possible to get some donations in just to basically buy lunch tomorrow, not make
yeah,
a living. But it's also small enough where I can still talk to chat and not have it going by like a billion miles an hour. And
right.
I'm basically just might as well be streaming to zero people at that point.
I
That's
get yeah.
that's what I feel
Oh,
like it would be to be like Medicare. Really, I mean, I love Jim, I do, and I'm happy that he's rich as fuck from these streams, and I would love to have that sort of money coming in. But at the same time, I feel like you would kind of lose your soul when you have that much shit going on in chat because it's like it's the essentially the same thing as when you have zero people because when there's zero people there, there's nobody to talk to. But when it's going by 13,000 people and the chat's going so fucking fast you can't see anything, you're not talking to anybody in chat either. Then it's
well, and I mean also, I mean I hate to say this, but kind of based on my experience and what I've observed, like when YouTubers get big, and I'm sure this isn't the case for everyone, and I don't have sour grapes, but it seems like the bigger YouTubers get, the bigger people get, the bigger their ego grows, and the worse and then like their worst personality traits like come out, or like rise to the surface almost. It's almost kind of incredible to watch, honestly.
I think that's just some people just are like that, and I think
Yeah,
they were going to be like that regardless. And it's just now that they've gotten more popular, people are more likely to see it because there's more people looking for that. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah.
if you a perfect example of like two different rock stars, and I gotta take a bathroom break in a second. Perfect example, Richie Blackmore from Deep Purple, which as I'm a huge fan of him.
Oh yeah.
Complete dickhead to the fans. Wouldn't talk to him, just ignored him, blowed him off, just wouldn't sign autographs. It's just a dick or whatever. But Ronnie James Dio, who was his singer in Rainbow at that point, from like the mid to like late 70s, Ronnie James Dio was the lead singer of Richie's band called Rainbow, for people that didn't know. And Ronnie did what I did, and he went out there, and every fan, he would shake their hand, tell them thanks for coming out. He'd sign their CD or whatever, and he would appreciate each and every fan. And he said that once he saw Richie snub the fans like that, he just never he learned what not to do with the fans, because if they don't show up, then there's no show, you know.
Right.
So that's why I always try to be as respectful as possible to chat. And you know, Dingo was blown away at how respectful I was to Papa Vickers, and I was just like, if I don't like somebody, I'm not going to bring them on the damn show.
Right.
That's just I'm not this type of guy that likes to bring on people to yell at them. I'm not a Tonka. I'm not a Ralph. I don't enjoy screaming and yelling and getting into internet fist fights or whatever. I don't enjoy that. I enjoy watching it for 20 minutes or so. I mean, once it gets after that, it gets excessive. But
Yeah.
I'm just of the mindset that it's like, if I don't like you, I'm just not going to have you on. And there's not many people I wouldn't have on. You know, it's like I don't think about size or anything like that, because I'm still a nobody. And even if I was getting 1,000 viewers
Sure.
of the show, I'm still nobody. I mean, who the fuck knows me? Like, if you go out there in the street and ask people who is Pod Awful, and I'm not shitting on Jesse, because I like Jesse and he's a Richmond guy too.
Sure.
Even though I don't live in Richmond now, but he's originally from Richmond. Who knows Jesse out there? Jesse is a good comedian, a good entertainer. I respect him, and I think he's really put in a lot of work. And you know, I love his set, and I think he's just a decent dude. You know, outside of his character, because I've seen him, you know, break character. He just seems like an all right guy outside of his character. And but the thing is, if I go to Richmond, does anyone know who Jesse is?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Well,
will they
I
know
mean,
who Ralph? Will they know who Ralph is? Maybe.
yeah.
He's
Well,
probably showed his ass at every bar there, but they would know Ralph for the wrong reasons. But nobody outside of Richmond would know who Ralph is. You know.
right. Well, I mean, like nobody even really knows, like, outside of the internet, who you know, who Medicare is really.
Yeah.
I mean, people might remember him as like internet aristocrat, because I do remember that he called into like some mainstream, like, you know, like talk shows during Gamergate. But like, and that's the whole thing too, is like outside of the internet, like no one knows who any of these people are.
No, they're not. It's you. When I was outside of the IBS, and right after this, I'll have to take a 30-second break. But I'm just gonna put this comment out. When I was looking on the outside, and I'm trying to still be outside of the IBS thing, because I don't want to be a channel that is necessary. I don't mind being associated with being a viewer that gives you updates or just laughs at the stuff, but I don't want to be a contestant. That's not something I don't want to be.
No.
I'm not trying to become a wrestler, but I will talk about the wrestling matches.
Right.
Is how I see it. And when I was outside of this bubble for 4 years, I just really could see how tiny and how easy it was for people to get sucked in and think that this is an entire universe, when it really is like a fucking block in a street. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just like a block in a street that has a block on a street in a city that has a billion different blocks and streets.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it really, to its own little area, yeah, it seems huge, but like to the outside, it's nothing. No one who you bring up, if you went to literally anybody, even in another internet community, like even something, you know, if you went to like Reddit / whatever the fuck, I don't know, puppy dogs or something, and you said, have y'all seen the new IBS episode? They probably think, what are you talking about? Like irritable bowel syndrome? I mean, what is IBS? They don't know. It's not. I mean, it's 13,000 people is a lot of viewers. I know, and that's huge. But there are Twitch people that just play Fortnite and get like hundreds of thousands of viewers.
Oh yeah.
You know, like live, like Pokimane, like dwarfs everybody in IBS and always has. And you know, the biggest IBS star is Destiny. Probably Destiny's probably bigger than Medicare. I think. I don't know, but I think Destiny, you know, because he does like the gaming stuff and he's huge on Twitch, but or was. So I don't know. I'll be right back.
All right.
Just give me a sec.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, folks, I mean, like I've said, this whole internet drama, thing, in my opinion, I mean, people take it way too seriously. As my co-host, Apex, Gam and I talk a lot, the internet isn't necessarily real. And, one of the things that I think is incredibly stupid is the fact that people get so butthurt on the internet that they basically try and ruin other people's lives over just comments on the internet. So yeah. Real quick housekeeping things while we're waiting for Falco to get back. As I mentioned, the entire archive of the show is backed up on rumble.com now. So that's rumble.com/the Whitfield Report. And also, you can also support the show on Odyssey, odyssey.com/the Whitfield Report. I believe that is the URL, and this video should be up there as well, I'm thinking, by the time you guys hear this, and all the links to support the show will be in the description. As always, I'm going to pause this real quick, or until Falco gets back, and then we'll resume. So this is just a quick break, and we'll be back. All right, folks, and we're back with Jack Pierce. Yeah, Jack, right as you left for the brief break. So yeah, like you said, this corner of the internet is very small.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, the beefs are entertaining and whatnot, but the one thing that I've always kind of thought was stupid, and I mean, this kind of just leads into some of the insane characters, in the E-drama circle. Are the people who want to life,
Ruination.
ruin it. Yeah, the
Yeah.
people who are into life ruination over the fact that they don't agree with each other on political stuff, or not even political stuff, but just really petty bullshit. It's just that side of the internet has always just been really kind of weird to me. So
Sam, I'm going to give you a little bit of a rant that is going to be exclusive for the Whitfield Report.
please
I've
do.
never
We
actually,
love rants.
I've never actually expressed this sort of opinion, and because I usually try to keep my sort of more complex opinions to myself, basically. But I've been around. Let's just say I've been around since 2014 when it comes to like the political sphere. Well, 2015. I'm sorry, 2014. I was still doing gaming stuff, but I went through GamerGate. I left right when IBS started. I came back now where we have whatever the fuck you call now. And I'm going to tell you right now, Gamergate is something that people name check saying, oh, it's such a big thing. And, so much was going on and gay ops aplenty and all of that. And that's true. That did happen. And it was very, very complex with a lot of factions going at it. Within the movement itself, there was a lot of different groups that hated each other, like GG Revolt hated GGHQ, and fucking, V didn't like this group, and just on and on. It was a lot of infighting in that group. But you know what? And then of course you had the anti-GG people, which were called like SJWs basically.
Right.
I'm gonna tell you something that people forget for some reason. I don't know why, or maybe they don't forget. The SJWs, and I'm not making up for them because I hate them. I hate them like I do because I hate Antifa and BLM and all of them. So I really do hate these groups. None of them did the shit that the America First people are fucking doing now. There were no DMCA things. Nobody was doing false flaggings left and right. Nobody was doxing anybody. Nobody was fucking swatting anybody. Nobody tried to call people's jobs. None of that shit ever happened until these assholes decided to bring it to that level.
Right.
Nobody.
Well, and I mean, this was kind of you actually kind of segued into my next point, because I mean, to me, it almost seems like I mean, it almost seems like I mean, I hate to say this, but people are right when they say that the blood sports crowd basically are the right wing SJWs, and this whole uh you know this whole internet John thing, they're basically all right wing SJWs.
Yeah.
There's no there's almost no difference other than a few things. And I mean, I wouldn't say the right wing SJWs. In some ways, they're more, degenerate than the SJWs are
Yeah.
in some
Yeah. I
cases.
agree.
I mean, so at the time we're recording this, the Nick Fuentes versus Mr. Medicare debate happened. So, and Jack, I have to be honest. I know you got pissed off at the Fuentes thing last night, and that you were saying how annoying he was. Like, there were a few
He is
times
annoying. He's very annoying.
your reaction on stream, and I messaged you a couple times, like your frustration at Nick. I was laughing my ass off
I
at your
bet you were. A
reaction,
lot of people do.
because, well, and I was making fun of you. I was laughing because everything that you were expressing is how I've seen Nick for the past 5 or 6 years. And I'm sure that this is part of his show. He's going to try and DMCA, but like, honestly, I have never understood the appeal of that kid. He is a serious narcissist. He has nothing of substance really, as far as like arguments go, as far as I can tell. His big shtick was oh, I got Charlie Kirk to give a I took down Charlie Kirk. I exposed Charlie Kirk as a fraud. And
I'm going to tell. I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm going to
no,
explain
please
to you
do.
exactly. I'm going to explain to you exactly how these people work. If you tell the truth, you're not going to be popular, because if truth is not popular, and I know that people think, oh, that's fucked up. That ain't true. No, it is true. People want to hear what they already think spewed back at them. That's why anytime you watch mainstream media talking about like MSNBC, CNN, whatever, they're basically telling you the same shit that you already know, that you already agree with, because they're not in, these people, including the America First types, they're not in the business of informing you, breaking stories, or trying to, change the world in any way. They're basically there to make money, which is fine. It's a job. I, have my own store, my own shop, not store. I know there's a difference. I don't actually sell anything. I just, I do services at the shop. And my whole shop, while I enjoy it and while I, do it, I get paid to do it. And that's because it's my job. That's my real job that pays my bills, not this IBS stuff. And I never would wish it on anybody, because it's really a prison to be stuck at the point where you want to be terminally online, to the point where you would actually make enough money doing this shit. You had to put in so much time that you'll just be miserable. I mean, look at Ralph, he's miserable. Look at Fentes, he's miserable. Look at everybody that does this except for Kino Casino. Everyone's just a miserable dick. Like, what? Jesse, thank you. I loved you, Jesse. He brought up a perfect fucking point on Kino Casino last night. He said that everybody on the America First side looks like they need like a hug and some fucking like nerve pills or something, because they all look really miserable over there. And they are, because their entire life is based around telling people what they want to hear, whether they believe it or not. Because if you say something they don't like, they'll unsubscribe. But if you tell them what they do, they do agree with,
well
it just
Oh, go ahead.
That's just how they are. It's just people want to hear what they already know and believe said back to them because it validates them and makes them feel good and all of that. And that's what these people do.
Yeah.
That's just what they do. And that's the business that they're in. They're the preachers of that part of the internet. That's what they do. They're the prosperity preachers of that internet. They are basically just feeding you the shit that you want, and it doesn't matter what shit that is. I think it's I think they've really sunk their shit with this DMCA thing. I don't think that's going to help at all. But
Well, so from my perspective, because I mean, I've been doing podcasting since 2008, and to be fair, I was one of those kids. I was like one of those teenagers that was like, into politics at like a super young age. I was kind of like a big political nerd when I was in high school. So on that sense of things, like I can relate to, like I guess Nick, in that way. But like I was never really out there to like I was never in it to really like say the most edgy shit possible. And the whole thing with America First, and maybe it's just because I'm a bit older now, but like to me, it almost seems like America First was never about America First, anything. It seemed like, oh, let's just say the most edgy shit possible about Jews, about blacks, about, whatever, to basically create drama and get attention,
it was
and
just them repeating stuff that they saw on Paul back to
right.
Paul.
Yeah. And then, Nick basically like just burning bridges endlessly. And now it's funny because I mean Porcelain actually brought up at this point on Twitter, like I've said from the beginning that like Nick Fuentes, I might not agree with anything he really says, or very little I should say, but he never he never deserved to be censored or taken down or copyright struck. Like he didn't deserve that. Neither did Milo Yiannopoulos or any of those guys. But for Nick to be, oh, I'm Mr. Free Speech Warrior, to now, oh, I'm the I'm the Joker, and anyone who doesn't like me, they can eat shit. And yeah, I'll copyright strike them. Like it's just, and dude, you're like 23 years old. Like no one in the real world like takes you seriously. And I know I'm 27. I'm nearing old man stage, I guess.
I'm
But
past old man stage. I'm 32.
but for fuck's sake, kid, grow up. So, you're not the Joker, you're not some edgy boy, you're you're a kid with deep-seated issues. Whether or not you're gay is another thing, and I don't really give a shit if you're gay or not. If you're not, cool. If you are, whatever. But it just, I mean, it just seems weird that like these children basically think that they're going to take over like the conservative movement, or whatever, and they've done nothing except for like burn bridges or do, I mean, yeah, it was just, I just got so much joy out of people just like just like coming to the realization that I did, which is that this kid is just weird at the, to put it nicely.
He's a
So
paleocon that panders to paleocons. That's what he does. I mean, that's the same thing Alsop did. And I think a lot of Nick's, I have my issues with Alsop as well, but those are
oh
more on. I'm not going to get into any drama with Alsop. I don't even know if he's around anymore, but Alsop, to give him credit, he was a good looking guy, no homo, but he was a guy that appealed to the ladies. He had a really good radio voice. He just knew how to, you know, say the things that got across to people that people wanted to hear. That's what it is. That's what I was trying to say, is they tell people what they want to hear is what it
I
really is.
I actually interviewed Allsup. This was pre, now just Now, to set things up for context, this was pre-Charlottesville.
Yeah.
Prior to, so I interviewed James Alsop way back when he, way back when he was hit out, way back when he was hit, in the head, by Antifa. And, at the time, he seemed very above board. He was, when I interviewed him, he was like a perfect gentleman.
Yeah.
He was, I wouldn't really say he was like a friend or anything, but he came
He's
on and
professional. You have to
yeah,
give him that. He's very professional. I will give him that. I don't. My problem with him was more of the same problem I have with a lot of people in that
right,
sector, which was they were pushing a product that did not do what they said it did. And even when I tried to explain to them, because I've been in tech since I was 16, so that means I've been in
right,
tech for 16 years, that that virtual shield was a very bad product that you shouldn't be using because it's been, it's basically a fed honeypot, because it's a domestic VPN. You don't use a domestic VPN or any of them in the 14i. So the only VPNs you should be using, and I may be wrong because there might be others out there, CyberGhost, that I've never used it, but it's not domestic. NordVPN's fine. Express, I wouldn't buy it because it's been bought out. Actually, CyberGhost too. Throw both of them off the list. I think they both got bought out by that malware company. I'll basically say NordVPN and Surfshark are your only two options, and buy whichever one you can afford, really. But the rest of them, just discard them entirely because all of them are rather based in the US, which basically means the FBI are watching it the entire time. So you kind of wasted your point if you were trying to hide from them, which you can't anyway. But it's just a principle. I don't want to pay for something where I know a government's going to spy on me.
right.
I don't want to just connect to a network where I know it's like, all right, well, the feds are watching me now for sure, and I'm paying for the privilege of them
Yeah,
watching me particularly. That's stupid. But I try to tell James, like, James, virtual shield is the domestic. It's based in Delaware. You don't fucking push anything that has, something within what they call the 14i treaty, basically saying that if your VPN is here, we'll allow our country basically can spy on what you're doing, and share it to the other people. So
yeah. Well, and I mean, so my whole problem with all stuff really became like once the once Charlottesville happened and whatnot. I mean, when I interviewed him, like, I honestly had no idea that he was like into any of that stuff that happened at Charlottesville, and maybe I was naive, but like very few people did, and like that was the only show that that I actually like deleted off the channel, and that was simply because like I didn't want people to get the wrong idea. I was like somehow connected
what
with.
stuff are you saying that he was into? Because I didn't follow Awesome close enough to actually
So,
understand.
so Allsup like really got into the whole like
JQ thing, probably.
yeah, I mean the race realism
Oh
stuff, like
Lord.
where where he would talk like, well, the cranial size of like African skulls and whatnot like relates to the whole IQ, you know, and stuff like that. Like I don't I don't want to like say that he's like an out and out racist, because like I feel like that label gets like thrown around a lot, but he has definitely like said some things that are like like a little too close to the mark on some.
My question is with the race realism stuff, and some of it is factually true, but it's not as if it's factually true or not. It's why do you care?
Right.
Like
um
like there is reason in my mind. There is reasons to medical reasons, at least, to know that there's a difference between a white and a black person. Like
sure.
because black people do have some issues that are more likely with them, just like white people have issues more likely with us. And Mexicans sort of like, I think it was like, what was it? Black people are more likely to get sickle cell, but we're more likely to get cancer. And then Mexicans are like the least likely to get cancer, but they're one of the highest for diabetes. Maybe that was black. I don't know, but
Yeah.
That sort of stuff, like medical, where like the doctor could be like, okay, well, this makes more sense because of your genetic makeup, like vitiligo
Right.
is pretty much a black person problem, like, where their black skin starts turning white, like Michael Jackson.
Right.
I want the doctors to be able to see, okay, that is something that affects this particular. I'm not, but I think that it's not the fact that blacks and whites are different. It's the fact that these people, like, also, they're using it to basically say they're different, therefore they're inferior, is what it
Right.
sounds like
Well,
they're saying. But that's not true. It's just, you
yeah.
know,
And then, I mean, there was like footage of him like a few that came out like a few years ago where he was basically like where he basically was like fanboying in front of like Richard Spencer, and like, yeah, I know that Richard Spencer now is like irrelevant, but like, back then when that footage came out,
yeah.
like, like Charlottesville had just happened, and like, and like, to be fair, like, I guess that is kind of where like I have to give Nick credit, because he did kind of, and that was kind of where the whole optics meme, that he's famous for, kind of came out of, because like, to Fuentes' credit, like, he did recognize early on that like being associated with Richard Spencer was not a good look optically for America First. And I think, and from my observation, that was kind of where the fault between him and Alsop happened. But now it's kind of funny because Mr. Optics over here is now doing DMCA strikes, and yeah, so that's no longer optically cool either.
I just think that it's just a matter of why the hell would I care about. I'm not a doctor and I'm not a scientist, so why the hell do I care the skull sizes and IQ numbers and all this other bullshit of this race versus that race? It's like, I mean, if you want to, like, you could actually take it and kind of think of it as kind of cool if you do take that shit, because it's like, you know how like you have different races in a video game, right? Like a certain races are
Yeah,
better than so. I mean, it's not racist to say that black people are stronger and faster than white people for the most part,
right,
you
yeah,
know. But white people have their general, not individual, but like they have their general things that they're just, I don't know, maybe their mercantile skill is higher or some shit. You know what I mean? But it's not like, I think it balance the genetics balance out where it's no one's really superior. It's just they're different. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah,
most athletes that are famous are black. I mean, it's just a fact that they're just better at physical activity than we are. Period. There's no racism there. They just are. They just
yeah.
fucking are. I mean,
I mean,
and Asians beat us on everybody on pretty much all the intellectual shit. So all of us are dumb compared to them. So
yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with acknowledging racial differences in and of themselves. Like, I'm not like an SJW where it's like I don't see race, or anything like that. Yeah, like, I'm not one of those, numbskulls, but at the same time, like, I don't like I don't think there's any reason to be like malicious about it,
that's the point. The point is, are you using these facts in a malicious way or not? Are you using it to say blacks are, because their average overall of billions of people is like an X amount less than this other one? Is it, they're basically saying, okay, well, black people have less IQ points than the average white person, therefore all blacks are stupid. That's what they're trying to say.
Yeah,
But that's just, and Craig, who's, I don't know if you want to call him my co-host or second chair, whatever you want to call Craig, because he's not really, doesn't have an official spot anywhere. He just kind of shows up when I ask him to show up. And
I call Craig the man
he is
because
a man.
Craig is the man. You're welcome, Craig. You can pay only $20 for that. So
The thing with Craig is he always had this line, and I always thought it was a great line, was statistics mean nothing to the individual.
right.
And that pretty much debunks all the race realism, like racist bullshit saying Thomas Sowell is apparently the smartest guy in America, and he's black. So
Yeah.
he's like number one economist in our fucking country. The dude's black and very black. He has no white or Asian in him at all. The dude is black. He's a black dude.
Oh yeah. Well, if you believe the SJW, he is a white black man, or however
good Lord,
or however that goes. Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is like oftentimes the America First people want to complain about the SJWs on the far left, right? But then it's like they're the flip side of the same shitty coin. It's like neither extreme is really good. And I'm not really even saying that I'm a moderate, because I think that at one point moderates do fence a bit too much. But honestly, my whole thing is I think you should be able to smoke pot and own guns and get married if you're a gay guy, or whatever. Just you be you, and as long as you're not screwing anyone else over, harming anyone, just do whatever. It's not that hard. So
yeah.
But
yeah, unfortunately my time is up, man. I've really got to go.
Yeah, no problem, man. Before we end, anything you'd like to plug? Where can people find your stuff and
just
whatnot?
Linktree/Falco Punch 64. That's
All right.
everything.
Well, sir, thanks for coming on, and feel free to come back anytime if you want to promote anything. I'll be sure to check out some of your books, especially now that they're on Audible.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it, man.
So yeah,
thanks for having me on.
No problem. And thanks to you folks for tuning in, and we'll be back later on. So God bless, and yeah, we'll talk at you down the road. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks for listening to The Whitfield Report on the NGC Network. Please visit Sam's website at www.thesamwhitfield.com and support Sam on Patreon at patreon.com/Whitfield Report. Until next time, God bless, God save this great nation, and God, freedom, legacy, in that order.